The greatest mistake people make in toxic dynamics is believing that if they just explain themselves better, speak louder, or repeat their truth one more time, the other person will finally understand them. But the reality is this: people who want to understand you will, and people who don't will twist, dismiss, or weaponize your words, no matter how carefully you deliver them. That's why fighting to be understood is a trap. It drains your energy, erodes your dignity, and ties your worth to the approval of someone who never intended to give it. Walking away, on the other hand, is an act of pure strength because it declares without words that your value is not up for debate. It says, "I don't need you to understand me to know who I am." And that truth carries more power than any argument ever could. Think of it like standing in quicksand. The more you struggle to be seen and heard, the deeper you sink. But the moment you stop fighting and step out, you reclaim your ground. Walking away is not weakness, it's clarity, it's discipline. It's the shield that protects your peace from being trampled by those who were never meant to hold it. Stoic wisdom says dignity is not found in proving your worth, but in living it. And walking away is the embodiment of that principle, the choice to preserve your energy rather than spend it on ears that were never listening. The trap of needing validation is one of the deepest chains that keeps people stuck, because the human instinct to be seen and understood is powerful. But in toxic dynamics, it's the very instinct that gets exploited. When someone twists your words, ignores your feelings, or deliberately misunderstands you, your natural response is to explain harder, defend yourself louder, or chase their acknowledgement even more. But that effort doesn't bring clarity. It only tightens the rope around your neck, because every time you try to force them to see your truth, you hand them the power to decide whether or not your truth matters. It's like shouting into a storm. No matter how loud you scream, the wind swallows your words, and all you're left with is exhaustion while the storm rages on untouched. This is why arguing with people who don't care to understand you always feels hollow. You're pouring energy into a void, a black hole that gives nothing back. The painful truth is that some people don't misunderstand you by accident. They do it on purpose because your frustration feeds them. Stoic wisdom says the man who depends on others for recognition is never free, and that's the essence of this trap. The moment your self-worth hinges on someone else getting you, you've already given them the key to your peace, and they will use it to lock you in place. Why fighting to be understood weakens you is because the very act of trying to force someone to see your perspective hands them control over your emotions and places your peace in their hands. Every time you argue, repeat yourself, or defend your truth to someone who refuses to hear it, you show them exactly where your wounds are and how desperate you are for recognition. And desperation is never power. It's leverage for the other side. They don't need to win the argument, they just need to keep you fighting, because as long as you're fighting, you're bleeding energy. Think of it like a boxer swinging wildly in the ring. He looks busy, but every punch that misses drains him until he's too tired to defend himself. That's what happens when you fight to be understood. You burn yourself out, shadow boxing someone who has no intention of giving you clarity. Worse, the more emotional you get, the less rational you sound, which makes them appear calm and in control while you look unbalanced. In that shift of perception, they gain power not because they were right, but because they stayed composed while you unraveled. Stoic wisdom says strength is found in restraint, not in noise, and that's why the constant battle to be understood only leaves you weaker. It's an endless cycle of proving yourself to people who already decided they won't see you. The power in walking away is that it speaks in a language no argument ever could, because silence and absence communicate what words cannot, that you value your peace more than their approval. When you walk away, you strip the other person of the ability to twist your words, bait you into circles, or drain you through endless debate. It's like stepping off a battlefield while your opponent is still swinging at shadows. Without you there, their strikes hit nothing and the fight collapses in on itself. The beauty of walking away is that it doesn't require them to agree, to apologize, or to change. It only requires you to reclaim your power by refusing to keep handing it over. Many mistake walking away for weakness, but in truth, it's the purest form of strength because it takes discipline to withhold the last word, self-control to resist the urge to prove yourself, and clarity to know that your worth doesn't need defending. Walking away tells the world, my dignity is not up for negotiation, and that declaration echoes far louder than any explanation ever could. Stoic wisdom says, retreat is not defeat when it preserves the self, and walking away is that retreat. It's not running, it's rising, because it removes you from the chaos and places you back in command of your own peace. Breaking the addiction to proving yourself is one of the hardest battles you'll ever fight, because the need to be understood runs deeper than logic. It's emotional, and emotions don't just fade because you decide they should. When someone twists your reality, when they gaslight or dismiss you, everything inside screams to correct them, to make them see, to defend your truth. But that urge is the trap, because it feels like strength while secretly bleeding you dry. Proving yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you is like pouring water into a cup with no bottom. It doesn't matter how much you give, it will never be enough. That's why this cycle feels like an addiction, because every time you get drawn into explaining, you're chasing a hit of validation that never comes, and the withdrawal of silence feels unbearable. But like any addiction, it can be broken with the right tools, and this is where you shift from desperation to discipline. This is why I created Surviving the Toxic Bond, my survival guide, available as both an audiobook and ebook, because it arms you with the strategies to stop feeding the cycle, to resist the urge to over-explain, and to build the strength to let silence speak for you. The audiobook is especially powerful in the moments when you feel that old craving rise up, when you want to break no contact, when you want to send the long message, because you can press play and be reminded why silence is stronger than words. And if you want to study and apply the lessons in depth, the ebook is there to reinforce them step by step, or even use both together to train your mind in every weak moment. Download it today through the link in the description and pinned comment, and start breaking the addiction now, because the freedom you're chasing doesn't come from being understood. It comes from no longer needing to be. The mirror effect of leaving is what makes walking away so powerful, because when you stop explaining and simply remove yourself, the other person is left with nothing but their own reflection. As long as you're engaging, they can deflect, project, and twist. But when you go silent, there's nowhere for them to hide. The mirror turns back on them, and they're forced to sit with the weight of their own actions. It's like holding up glass in front of someone who's been throwing stones. Suddenly the stones bounce back, and they finally feel the impact of what they've been hurling at you. This is why silence unsettles toxic people more than shouting ever could, because your absence denies them the reaction that justifies their behavior. Instead of seeing your frustration, they see the emptiness they created, and that emptiness is harder to face than any argument. Walking away flips the dynamic completely. Instead of you fighting to be seen, they're left wondering why you no longer care to be, and in that space, they often reveal their true colors, either by scrambling to pull you back in or by collapsing under their own games. Stoic wisdom says the world is a mirror that reflects what we put into it, and walking away is the purest version of that principle. It stops you from projecting energy outward and forces them to confront the reality they can no longer escape. How walking away protects your energy is simple. Every argument you refuse to enter, every explanation you choose not to give, every trap you step out of instead of into, saves you from pouring life into a bottomless pit. Fighting to be understood drains you twice, once in the effort of trying, and again in the disappointment when nothing changes. Over time, that constant depletion erodes your confidence, leaves you anxious, and convinces you that peace is impossible. But the moment you walk away, you cut off the leak and your energy begins to return to you. It's like carrying buckets of water to a fire that was never meant to go out. The more you pour, the more exhausted you become, until one day you realize the only way to win is to stop feeding the flames. Walking away is that realization. It's not surrender, it's self-preservation, the decision to guard your strength for battles that actually matter. The energy you once wasted on trying to be heard can now be poured into growth, into discipline, into relationships and pursuits that pour back into you instead of draining you dry. Stoic wisdom says the wise man does not waste effort on what cannot be controlled, and that is the essence of walking away. It protects your most precious resource, your energy, by refusing to spend it on ears that were never listening. Turning silence into leverage is what transforms walking away from just an escape into a weapon of power, because absence has a gravity that presence often cannot match. When you stop arguing, stop chasing, stop explaining, you create a vacuum, and that vacuum forces others to feel the weight of your withdrawal. The very attention they once took for granted suddenly becomes scarce, and scarcity always creates value. It's like closing a book mid-story. The unfinished pages haunt the reader far more than a neatly tied ending, because the silence leaves them to fill in the blanks with their own thoughts. In the same way, when you walk away without explanation, you leave them with questions they can't answer, and those questions echo louder than any speech you could have given. This leverage flips the dynamic. Instead of you fighting for their recognition, they begin to notice the cost of losing yours. And even if they never admit it, the silence unsettles them because power shifts when indifference enters the room. Stoic wisdom says true influence comes not from force, but from withdrawal, and silence as leverage is the perfect example. It bends the game in your favor without you lifting a finger, proving that sometimes the loudest victory is won in absolute quiet. The warrior's exit is the ultimate display of strength because it is the act of leaving without anger, without begging, and without the need for a final explanation. It is leaving with dignity intact and peace preserved. When you walk away on your own terms, you communicate that your worth was never dependent on their recognition, and that realization shakes the ground beneath anyone who thought they could control you. It's like a fortress, lowering its drawbridge only for those worthy to enter. When you raise it back up and walk away from those who abuse the privilege, they are left outside staring at walls they can no longer breach. This doesn't mean you didn't care, or that you didn't feel. It means you cared enough about yourself to refuse to keep pouring into a void. The warrior's exit is not about revenge, not about showing them what they lost, but about proving to yourself that your peace is too valuable to be handed to people who trade it for chaos. And in that moment, you become untouchable, because you've chosen silence over noise, clarity over confusion, and dignity over desperation. Stoic wisdom says the strongest stance is often found in retreat, and the warrior's exit embodies that truth. It is not weakness, it is mastery, because when you walk away without looking back, you do so not in defeat, but in victory, carrying your power with you while leaving their games to crumble behind you. Fighting to be understood will always drain you, but walking away will always free you, because the truth is, peace is never found in trying to make someone else see your worth. It's found in knowing it yourself and refusing to waste it where it isn't valued. Every time you walk away without explanation, you prove to yourself that your energy belongs to you, not to those who twist it, drain it, or weaponize it. That is the real strength, not in the noise of argument, but in the silence of dignity. Remember to keep sharpening that discipline with the tools I've already given you. Surviving The Toxic Bond is there as both an audiobook and ebook, linked in the description and pinned comment. Ready for you when the urge to explain or chase tries to pull you back into weakness. If this message spoke to you, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the strongest words are the ones never spoken, because walking away is the voice of true power.